Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. Well, if you watched my recent video, I spent some time taking apart this Black Diamond BW90 drill grinder into its components here. It's pretty daggone filthy, and I started getting everything cleaned up here by using some super clean. I've got some super clean I'm going to be giving away. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but the way I usually start this stuff is I take the small parts, I put them in a freezer bag, then I take that bag and put in another bag, and I do that because inevitably I'm going to get a puncture here. Pour in some super clean and then some water to dilute it a bit, squeeze all the air out of the bag, and then I drop that into the ultrasonic, and then it's just using the spray bottle here to clean up some of the larger parts. I'll get it soaked down, try to get some of the dirt and grime, using an old toothbrush here to get into some of the other nooks and crannies. I did clean out a lot of the bores in which there were things that slid through them, including these drive rods. Those gave me a bit of a headache. Again, the super clean does a really good job. Sometimes you got to use a little bit of manual agitation. Here I've got the one guard here in the ultrasonic, and you can see how good of a job it's doing, but you know, it still has quite a bit of work to do, and it does leave behind quite some grungy residue, and that's just off of the larger parts that I soaked in the super clean. The small parts really weren't as bad, but that kind of brings us where we are at today. And yeah, this stuff cleaned up really nice. I'm impressed with how good the paint actually is. I was expecting this to be a lot worse, but it was kind of hidden underneath all that grime. Now, I will say we did have one casualty here, and that's, again, I kind of warned about super clean and how aggressive it can be if you're not careful on certain kinds of paints and stuff. And well, I didn't pay attention to what I was doing, and the data plate got wiped out. But I think I have a solution to bring that back to life. There's only a couple of spots here in which it's stamped. Everything else was kind of silk screened on there. And I think I have something that I can do to bring this back so it's legible. There's another spot on here on this drill grinder. This was the index for adjusting the angle of the point. That I knew was going to get wiped out, and I was okay with because you could hardly read it anyway. And I have plans to recreate that. I think it should be okay. I guess only time will tell. But the first thing I really want to do is concentrate on getting this motor back together. I am going to cut this cord off because it's just going to be in the way. I do have new bearings for this. Well, I have several new bearings for this. When I ordered the new bearings, I used the number that was on the bearing itself, and these are the same brand and everything. These are Nachi 6203Zs. However, when I got them, they don't have seals on the other side. So I went back to the internets and I bought a set of Timken bearings. This is 6203s, but these are ZZ, which means it's shielded on both sides. However, when I got them, I didn't realize that these were rubber seals, and a viewer pointed out that I shouldn't use rubber seals on this, and that because the rubber seals would get wore out. And so then I went back to the internet and I found another set of Timken bearings. These are also ZZ, which means that they're shielded on both sides, but these are metal shielded. So only took a few tries, but I got the bearings. So the first thing I want to do is get new bearings pushed on this, get this whole motor assembly put back together, and then I can set it aside and I can start working on the components for the base, because I think I need to put that drill point grinder attachment, whatever, on here first, because it felt like it would be difficult to get the motor on if that was in if the motor was on first. So let's go over to the arbor press and we'll go ahead and press these out, and then we'll get some new bearings pressed on. Now those came off pretty easy on the arbor press, but when I do a little test fit here, I mean, that slides on there. These new bearings, for whatever reason, seem to be just a little bit wider than the old ones. It's a little bit on the strange side because they are the exact same specification of a bearing. And just out of curiosity here, 668, 16.98 millimeters. 16.99, 17. So these are about 1/100th of a millimeter, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure why these are slipping on so easy. However, I am going to use a little bit of Loctite 638 bearing retainer. I meant to do this when I did the double-ended grinder, and it was pointed out to me by, I think it was Dean from Air Cave Shop, that I should have done that, and so I ended up taking that machine apart. I'm going to take this over to, I think the arbor press I might be able to fit that in the arbor press. Let's find out. Alright, it's tight there where it goes down up to that shoulder. So maybe that first part of that shaft is intentionally loose. I don't know. Do the same thing on this other bearing. Yeah, I could use a little bit of press. That will not fit in my arbor press, I don't think. I might take this over to the hydraulic press. I'll be right back. Alright, I ended up using the hydraulic press. I didn't feel like moving the camera, so you didn't get to see that, but it's not like it was very exciting. Alright, I am going to be replacing this cord. I got a new power cord for it, so I think just to make life a little bit easier, we're going to cut that off and put this in the appropriate receptacle. I had put a couple of marks in here, so I made sure I put it back together the right way. Alright, I'm going to put this piece on here next. This just slides over the shaft. It's keyed with a piece of pipe. Okay, it feels like it's down all the way. It feels really good too. What I can do now though is go ahead and replace this cord. This cover plate on the back covers up where all this is connected in. Let's see what we have behind here. Looks like somebody's been here because there's a, looks like a hex-headed slot screw. One of the round head is gone. Okay, so we got a switch. Ground that wasn't connected. I'm sure this is that was part of the strain relief. Not gonna worry about that. Okay. So it looks like one side of the power goes to this wire nut. That's a crimp connector, not a wire nut. And the other side went to this switch. Looks like it has a ring terminal on it too. I need to do something with strain relief here. Let me see what I've got in my bag of tricks. Well, I don't have an exact match, but I do have this, which should be close enough as long as I got enough threads underneath. I can fit this in here. Oh, I guess I shouldn't have tightened that much. I think I got another one. I hope I got another one. All right. Try this again, and this time be a little bit more gentle. I do want to make it a little bit tight so it doesn't come loose. That should be good. Okay, this cord is just about too thick for this thing, but I think I got it. There we go. Should be good. This cap can go on. I did have to drill out the back of this thing ever so slightly because it would not go on. All right. I'm not an electrician. Do not take anything that you see me doing as some kind of guide on how to wire up motors or machines, because you'd be a fool. Okay, we're going to wrap that in some electrical tape too, just to make sure. I'll put a couple ring connectors on these other two. Okay, well, if I did everything right, I should be able to plug this in, not get electrocuted, and the motor should turn on and sound nice and quiet. Oh, it's so much quieter than it was before. Wow. What a change. Yeah, those bearings definitely needed replacing. Such a quiet motor. Love it. All right, I'm going to set this motor aside now while I put that split point attachment back together and get that mounted to the base. Okay, I think I have all of the parts here for the split point adjuster. I do need to replace this bearing. It sounds pretty crunchy. What's interesting, I don't know why this would be open on one end. There wasn't any grease in it. It sits in this cavity, and I see no way to grease it, or to lubricate it. So I bought a replacement. This is not something that I think needs to be super precision, so I'm not too worried. But it's the same bearing. I hope. Now I'm not so sure. Let me press this off at the arbor press. I don't think that's going to fit on there. Yeah, I'm questioning, is this actually a pressed on bearing? Or is it a special one? Because I don't see an inner race that's this size. I tried to press that on the arbor press. It did not want to go. So I question whether or not this is actually the bearing that I got. I don't think it is. This says R12Z on it. And this says R12Z on it. I guess what I'm going to have to do is see if I can't clean this up a little bit. I'll put some grease in there and we'll run this, because that's not the right bearing. So that's going to have to go back in the box. We'll just stick it in storage, and maybe it'll get used on this project somewhere. All right, let me spend some quality time with some brake clean and get this cleaned up and put a little bit of grease in it. Okay, I cleaned that up a little bit with some brake clean. It felt fairly decent. And just put some general purpose grease. And it feels pretty good. So it's not like this is going to get gets a lot of wear. I didn't need to replace it. I was only replacing it because I had the thing open. So I think we are good to go ahead and get this reassembled. I'm going to start by this nut is captured in here. Not sure of the purpose of this. And then this threads up inside of here with the nut. Okay. So this piece will slide down inside of here, and then the snap ring goes on. Get a little bit of oil. There we go. Yeah, not too bad at all. There's a couple of set screws. There's a couple threaded holes in this outer piece. I think there's a little bit of draft angle or something on this. There must be when it was cast, because there's a little bit more space up here at the top than there is at the bottom. Well, next is this arm. Put a little bit of oil in here, make this a little easier to go on. And now the countersunk cap screw. If anybody out there knows how to use this gadget, please shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you, because this thing is a bit on the confusing side. I'm not sure what all these adjustments, how they end up getting used to set this thing for grinding a split point. I mean, that's some kind of a stop. This is also some kind of a stop. But, you know, if I turn this knob, so this knob, adjust this in and out, and I'm guessing that this is a stop. keep me from being able to turn it too far that way. And then I presume that this set screw here with the jam nut is to keep you from bringing it back too far. But again, to what point? Where do you know how far is too far? Right? But this is all moving nice and smooth, so I'll go ahead and get it mounted back on the motor base. Okay, and this can now mount back up here on the motor base. There's a couple of pins, and I have a couple of socket head cap screws. These will be a lot easier to reach without the motor on, which is why I'm doing this now. Okay, next, let's get the motor back installed on this thing. Off camera, I went ahead and put the bracket back on the bottom of the motor. Now I gotta put those guide rods back through, the ones that I didn't realize had a flat to set screw. So we'll get those back installed. Now while I'm doing this, I want to remind you that I have a giveaway going for some Super Clean. You can see the differences that it made in this machine, how much cleaner it actually made it. So the instructions for this are pretty simple. All you have to do is send me an email. Send me an email down here. Make sure I got it spelled right. Last week when I published this video, this was spelled wrong. So I had to take it down and put up another version. So hopefully, if you watched last week's video and you tried to send an email to the wrong address, this is the right one. greg@mylilmule.us. Put subject of Super Clean, and in the email, I need your YouTube username and your mailing address. And it's got to be a US-based mailing address. And I will randomly select somebody on March 1st, 2026. I'll send that information off to Super Clean, and they will send you a spray bottle and an aerosol can of Super Clean. You can see how good of a job it did on this. I promise you, I see no reason why you won't like it as much as I do. And I have been using this stuff for a lot longer than I've been on YouTube. Okay, get a little bit of assistance here. Okay, make sure this is turned straight up. Okay. Looks good. A little bit of difficulty getting on that side. Let me get this side here started. Yes, no, maybe. There we go. Make sure that's lined up straight. Okay. Now I'm going to have to lift up the back of this a little bit in order to get those rods lined up with the rear holes. There we go. Perfect. All right. I'll get these set screws remounted. Okay. Now I want to turn this thing around and get the motor lead screw, whatever you want to call it, adjustment screw, put back into place. All right, next I want to put back together this adjustment mechanism here for the motor. A little bit of oil on these threads, just to make it a little bit easier to go in. But let me put this handle back on temporarily. All right, put this, got the handle on here temporarily just so I can kind of get this thing started. And oh boy, that's giving me some fits. What is going on there? Well, the inside of those threads were just filthy dirty. I was able to blow it out with just some compressed air, and now we got... Okay, got this back together, so let's see if we can't get this lead screw thingamajig here started in the back of the motor base. Let's go back. I have to put this in while I'm turning it in, I presume. It's kind of the way I remember taking it out. It did not go in easy. All right, this can turn around now. Get a couple of countersunk cap screws. Graduated dial will sit on here. All right, on to the next thing. Okay, next up, there's this sliding piece here. I'm not sure what this is called, but we'll get this put back in place. All right, so that only goes in one way, which is this way. Big dowel pin, little dowel pin. All right. A couple of socket head cap screws. Now is this slide here, it's kind of like a compound. I was pretty careful cleaning this because I definitely did not want to lose this. I'd be screwed. So if I was smart, I'd go take a photocopy of this, but I'm not that smart. So what I'm going to do instead is put it together. So it's got a gib that will slide in here. I'm going to put a little bit of oil. I think it's just these two inside surfaces that really ride on anything. Well, before I do that, I need to put this lead screw back in. Okay, so the set screw, and then the knob itself actually unscrews from the end, which I thought was interesting. I also thought was interesting is there's no like brass shoer in there. This slides through here, and then this goes back on. Okay. And there's this knob here with the dog point end on it. I think this acts just as like a lock. So now this won't move. Perfect. All right, what's next? Well, I might as well go ahead and get this piece put back together. This is the device that you use to set the angle of the split point for sharpening. And if I remember right, ball bearing goes in from the top. Spring will go in from the bottom. I'll put a little more oil on the bottom of this thing. Right? Now it's got a series of spring washers, Belleville washers, upside down, then one on top of that, then one on top of that. Now the cover plate for this was kind of beat up, but I did not want to damage it, so I left it alone. I need to put the spring in, and then there's a set screw. I believe this was on here. I'm not sure why I would have one in this hole versus this hole. I have a feeling it has to do with the angle, the relief angle, or maybe the angle of the actual drill point, like 118 versus 120, etc. So I'm wondering if that's what this does. Again, it's kind of hard to find documentation on this thing. I have not had a ton of luck. What I have found, I really haven't read too much on it yet. So I'm sure if I spend a little time reading on it, I would learn a lot more. All right, this can get mounted now to the top of the grinder. Well, the next piece I have to put together is this fixture, which is used for actually sharpening the drills. But there's quite a few pieces here, and I'm going to have to go back and look at my video on how I took this thing apart and make sure I have everything covered, because there's still quite a few pieces that I have over here, and I got to make sure that they all go back where I expect them to, and that I don't put something together the wrong way. So I'm gonna have to go do that, and then I'll come back and hopefully get this finished up. Well, I thought I was gonna put that other piece together, but what I'm gonna do instead is take this thing apart, because I just realized after going back and looking at my video that there's something I forgot to put on in here. So this has to come off. Okay, there's a cap screw that goes on the back of this thing with a washer, and I forgot all about that. So there's this hardened washer, and this cap screw goes on here, and I believe that is to keep this thing from I believe that's to keep this nut from going too far, so you cannot unscrew this thing too far. So I think before I put that on there, though, I'm going to put a little blue Loctite on there so it can't rattle itself loose. All right, now I can move on to this other part. So I went back to go find the video that I had of disassembling this thing and realized that I lost that video, which is why you didn't get to see it last week, which poses a challenge for me, because now everything that I do here has to be from memory. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. It's just a little bit more of a challenge. So if I remember correctly, this felt washer sat on the bottom, and it was fairly well hardened oil and stuff in it. So we'll go ahead and just soak it down. And then this sat in there between that pivot point. And I do know that this was in here, and that sat in that point. I'm pretty sure that this goes in here. Tighten this set screw down. And this spring goes in between these two. Now this piece here is like cammed, and I think it's to cut the proper relief angle. And so it sits on the front of this. There's a couple of screws here. These screws are in pretty rough shape too. It's like a lot of this machine. Well, this gets mounted to the front of this machine, but I didn't have any of that hardware for it. So I need to figure out what hardware I need. Those look like, could be quarter 20. Now this takes some quarter 20 hardware, but I need to make a nice big fat washer or something, and this really isn't tall enough in order to lock this down, because these are not going to work. Maybe this came with shoulder bolts originally, I'm not really sure. But we're almost done putting this thing together. There's a couple of shields that have to go on here from the front and the back, and then there's the wheel shield that needs to go on the front. I think I'll go ahead and get those put on off camera, because that's going to be a pain in the neck to try to video again, as bad as it was when I trying to take it off. Getting these nuts up inside of here and getting them tightened down was a royal pain. It'll be easier if this is not in my way, so we're going to take this off for now anyway. And let me get the shield back on, front and back shields, and I'll bring you back here in a minute. Okay, well, I have it together as much as I'm going to be able to get together right now. I did find the cap for the motor lock. If you remember on disassembly, that was just a socketed cap screw. This cap was sitting in one of the boxes. Yeah, so I still have a lot to figure out. This doesn't seem right to me, but this seems to be out of place. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like this is going to do anything. So I might have this on here wrong. I still need to find some hardware to mount this thing down, or make some kind of like sleeves for the bolts. I got a grinding wheel coming yet, so that's coming. Yeah, so I'm getting there. Hopefully in the next video. And I still need to replace that chart. I need to do the data plate, maybe do something with that. I don't know. But yeah, I still have a little bit more to do. But this is backwards, I'm betting. Maybe, I don't know. Something doesn't feel right there. Because that is like, I don't know how that's going to do anything. I don't know. I gotta go back and look at my video and see how that thing came apart, because that just doesn't feel like it's going to do anything. It's so far away from where the grinding wheel would be. It seems kind of pointless. So again, somebody else more knowledgeable than me knows how this thing is supposed to work. I would really appreciate some guidance. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This thing is in a lot better shape than I expected it to be honest with you. Don't forget, send your email for the Super Clean giveaway. You got about another week or so, right? March 1st, I'm going to choose a name. So I need your YouTube username, your US-based mailing address, all by March 1st, 2026, so I can send off one of you to Super Clean to get a spray bottle of Super Clean, which will look like this, and also an aerosol can. This stuff foams up a bit. It's nice. Get entered in the giveaway. Don't miss out. All right. That's going to be it for this video. I got to figure out what the heck I'm doing wrong here. I got to find that hardware. I still have a lot to do. The other thing is, there's no way to dress this wheel because I don't have the wheel dressers. So I'm either going to have to make a wheel dresser, or hopefully I can find parts. But parts for this thing are stupid expensive. I seen this piece right here on eBay for $75. This just a little piece. I don't understand that. Somebody explain it to me. This piece is a little bit worn, but $75? Really? I mean, I know I could make that. I don't know, it's $75. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you do. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber, so you'll know when I find another abused machine tool that needs to be rescued. If you'd like to support the channel monetarily or in other ways, there's some links down in the description. You can become a channel member. You can become a Patreon. You can buy me a coffee, drop me a PayPal donation. Every little bit helps so I can come out here and record these videos and get them edited and pushed up. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.